Okay, shalom. Right, back to this incredible teaching on Psalm 118. Now, although this is related to this teaching, and I'm using it to fill this concept in. This concept has been one of the first concepts that I came across when I began all these studies. It's the concept of the suffering servant. It's the concept of the Moshiach being a leper. Okay, so it's very, very interesting. I'm going to just tell you how it links into this teaching from Psalm 118, but I'll also say it's very much a standalone teaching, even though it's related, and I'm using the opportunity that these numbers in Psalm 118 present. It's very much a standalone teaching as well, and it's very, very important. Okay. So we've got points 3 and 4 on here, which I've looked at quite extensively already, but I said I would come back and do a major drill down. So point 3 is taken from Deuteronomy 7:12, and basically I'm looking at the numbers 198 and 990. The reason why I'm looking at these numbers is because the 990 is very critical when it comes to a revelation about the Moshiach being a leper. Okay, and the whole purpose of the Moshiach being a leper, and what that also points to regarding the concept of Chilul Hashem, and why the Moshiach has to suffer with us in exile in order to redeem us from every single possible sin, including the sin of desecrating the holy name of Yod He Vav He. So there's lots involved with this. And like I say, it comes from point 3 and point 4 basically on there. Wherefore it shall come to pass, which comes to 198 plus 63, which that's the ordinal and the regular. And we've pointed out already that that's 261, and 261 times 2 is 522. 522 is, if you go down to point 5, it's the olive leaf in the dove's mouth. You can see it's highlighted in pink on point 5, and it's also one of the fillings out of Yeshua. This number comes up all the time. So we're interested in the 198, I said, and then 198 times 5 is 990. Multiples of 5 represent Teshuvah, return of the Hay. 990 is Moshiach ben Yosef plus Moshiach ben David. And also 198 is Moshiach ben David plus Moshiach ben Yosef ordinally. Okay, so we're going to have a look at those numbers again later. So let's go on to this incredible concept of the leper, the Moshiach being a leper. And this is especially important because we're reading this week, which is the 16th of the 4th, 2022, we're actually reading the portion about leprosy. So it's a good time to be studying these things. It's a great time to be studying these things. Okay, so now we're going to begin the teaching on the concept of the Moshiach being the leper. Okay, this concept is taken from the Talmud, Sanhedrin 98b. Sanhedrin 98b is basically all about the Moshiach, what's written about the Moshiach in the Torah, in the Talmud, sorry. It lists all the 4 names of the Moshiach, and that's what you begin with. What is his name? The school of Rabbi says Sheila. The school of Rabbi Sheila says Shiloh is his name, etc., etc. Anyway, we go down to the bit highlighted in red eventually, and you can see that each rabbi says a name. So, like one rabbi says Shiloh, and Rabbi Yehudah says Yinon. Rabbi Hanina says his name is Hanina. So they're all related to his name. Do you understand? They're all related to his name. So, like Sheila is like Shiloh, Yanai is like Yinon, and Hanina is obviously exactly the same as Hanina. And then it says, and some say that Menachem ben Chezkiah or Ezekiah is his name, as it is stated, because the comforter Menachem that should relieve my soul is far from me. Okay, then we get to the text highlighted in red. And the rabbis say, Rabbanon Omri. So I hope you can appreciate this is not just one rabbi, as in the case of the first three names, and it's not just some rabbis, as in the case of Menachem. It says the rabbis say. So this is like all the rabbis, isn't it? They're all saying this. So this is the difference, and this is the significance of the fact that there's a unity between all the rabbis that say that the Moshiach is the leper of the house of Rabbi and Rabbi in this instance is Yehudah HaNasi. So the leper of the house of Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi is his name. As it is stated, indeed, our illnesses he did bear, and our pains he endured, yet we esteemed him injured, stricken by God and afflicted. So that's taken from Isaiah 53:4. So that, for a start, directly contradicts what most rabbis say when you point out that the Moshiach is a suffering servant, and Isaiah 53 is written about the Moshiach. There's loads of rabbis. The chief one, like rabbis like Rabbi Tovia Singer, the Jews, they say things like this is nothing to do with the Moshiach. Which clearly it's everything to do with the Moshiach, and all the rabbis agree that it's something to do with the Moshiach. So that just blows their stories out of the water, their interpretation out of the water, when they say that this is the suffering servant of Israel, i.e. the Jewish people. That's their understanding of who Bnei Israel. They don't include the lost house of Israel for the most part. They certainly don't include the lost part of Israel that Yeshua has been redeeming through the last 2,000 years. That's not included in their concept of Bnei Israel. That just includes themselves and their own suffering. It's quite clear from listening to the teachings. It's repulsive, and it's lies, and it's erev rav. There's no truth in it. Or there is some truth in it, I should say, else the lie wouldn't be able to endure. But these are lies, erev rav lies that create disunity and desecrate the name of Yod Heh Vav Heh, because Yod Heh Vav Heh has been revealed to the lost house of Yisrael at a very high level, and these people absolutely call that revelation nothing but idol worship. They don't seek the truth that's revealed in that. They only about promoting themselves. It's erev rav mentality. Fair enough, they have to protect the Jewish people because there is a lot of evil within Christianity, and this unity is proving, the unity between the lost house of Israel and the Jewish people, the house of Yosef and the house of Yehudah, is not a small task. And we've got to reach a place of shalom, and we've got to bring that one stick together for the sake of the name of Yod Heh Vav Heh, to be united, the inner revelation and the outer revelation, the revelation according to the letter of the law and the revelation above the letter of the law. And this is a difficult task. Moshiach will accomplish this. Moshiach himself will accomplish this. But once we know, we've got some direction, we've got to be able to be like Moshiach until he finally appears. We've got to be doing everything we can to imitate what we know is required. Unity is required. So we've got to get to a place of understanding. And yes, I do understand that the erev rav has been there to protect the Jewish people from the evils that they have suffered at the hands of Christians who have been themselves deluded and subject to the evil influence of a Greco-Roman mindset that's prevented them from accessing the true light, or it's exiled that light into a very dark, evil husk. Okay? But this is all about reaching that place of maturity, isn't it? Where we don't need to be protected by evil outer husks, because the fruit inside is mature. We've expanded our consciousness. We know there's only Yod Heh Vav Heh and nothing else. And we don't need to feel like we're the centre of the universe. We now know that Yod Heh Vav Heh is the centre of the universe. We're paying more attention to what he has been doing rather than what I have been doing, and this is the moving from small-mindedness to broad-mindedness, where Yod He Vav is at the center of our universe. We are not ourselves at the center of our universe, because when we are ourselves at the center of the universe, we've got to then protect ourselves against everybody else that we perceive is not us. Okay, so this is where our outer egotistical hard husks come in. We've got to reach a place of maturity where we know there's only one, it's all one. We're all connected in one way or another through the name Yod He Vav. There's nothing other than him. So we've got to find a way of bridging the gap that our own ignorance and ego and arrogance and pride creates. Right, so I just wanted to point that out because it's absolutely incredible stuff, and we can learn a lot just from that. But I hope it's stressed for you how important it is the concept of the fact that this concept of the Moshiach being a leper, i.e. suffering for us, is very significant when it comes to it's just a very significant thing, and you can even see it highlighted in the Talmud when it said, and the rabbis say, implying all the rabbis knew. So my question then is, okay, so a leper from the house of Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi, if it's so significant, then where do we find out about the concept of the leper that we could understand why all the rabbis said? Where did they get their source from to be able to all say that the Moshiach is a leper from the house of Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi? Where did they get the source from to be able to say this? Because clearly we've got it can't just be Isaiah 53:4. Why? What did they see in that, and that made them associate it with the concept of the leper? Okay. And I just thought to myself, let's go and have a look at the verses in the Torah regards the concept regards leprosy. Maybe we will be able to deduce from there what all the rabbis were able to see when they were putting this Talmud together. So, guess what? Guess what we see when we go and have a look? It's just wonderful and beautiful. Okay. We're going to eventually get to the verses. First of all, however, let's just have a look at this that's written. Let's do some number crunching just from this small part. So we're going to this page now. Moving on. I'll let you if you want to read the whole of that, please do. And go and have a look. You can have a look on Sefaria.org. This entire portion of the Talmud is available in English and this is actually Aramaic. Okay, so this is not Hebrew, this is Aramaic, because the Talmud is written in Aramaic along with Zohar. Plus it was the language that Yeshua himself spoke. Hebrew is a holy Lashon Kodesh. So it's a holy tongue. It was spoke, in the synagogues and things like that, the reading of the Torah. It wasn't the everyday language. You've got to understand, Hebrew has been revived, but I don't believe it's ever been there. As far as I'm able to understand, it was actually never the normal spoken language, because it was considered so holy that it wasn't used for everyday purposes. And this is how you ended up with all kind of variations, like Yiddish and Ladino, I think is one. And there's kinds of even it's supposed this whole concept of Koine Greek is supposedly like Jewish Greek. It's not classical Greek. The syntax is all wrong. There's something, the way that even the New Testament was written, it wasn't written in classical Greek. It's what's called Koine Greek. It's like a very much an Hebraic influence, just as the German language is very much Yiddish, is connected to the Germanic languages, but at the same time it contains a very, very much Hebrew influence, and so too Ladino, which is that's Yiddish is like the Ashkenazi, common language, the Ashkenazi Jewish common language. In Ladino was, I think that's how you say it. I've not had much. I've not had much exposure to this. I've had more exposure to Yiddish, but Ladino was the Sephardic Jewish those going into Spanish-speaking countries rather than the Germanic-speaking countries. So they came up with another language, Ladino, and this was like a similar to Yiddish. It was Sephardic, Jewish, common language, and a lot of the teachings were written in this, as is a lot of the teachings were written in Yiddish for the Ashkenazi Jewish population. So you've got to understand the common language was Aramaic in the time of Yeshua. That he spoke in Aramaic, for sure he spoke in Aramaic. And pretty much everybody at that time did. So you've got the Talmud written in Aramaic, the Mishnah written in Aramaic, Zohar written in Aramaic. Okay. I will point out actually regarding the Mishnah, it was written in what's called Mishnaic Hebrew, and some parts were written in Aramaic. So just to distinguish that actually, but the Talmud is written in Aramaic. The Gemara is written in Aramaic. Okay, so let's get back to this wonderful, wonderful teaching. Right, so the top box, and the rabbis say, the leper of the house of Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi is his name. As is stated, indeed, our illnesses he did bear, and our pains he endured, yet we did esteem him injured, stricken by God, and afflicted. Okay, point 1 then. And the rabbis say, the leper of the house of Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi. That's not actually in the text. It's just Rabbi, which is a reference to Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi. Okay, so is his name, which comes to 1,364. And then there's also 239 ordinal. Both together they come to 1,603, which is 7 times 229. All these numbers are significant, so we're going to have a look at them all. Okay, so straight away, point 2 then. The sun, these are the 3 words that come up in this teaching all the time. 3 words to describe the sun, the luminary that's called the sun. Hameor, which means the luminary. Hagadol, the big. Hayom, of the day. Okay, so they come to 355 regularly, which we know that's related to Moshiach ben Yosef, and 103 ordinarily. Together they come to 458, which is 2 times 229. So straight away we'll see a link between this and the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. This is one of the most significant numbers regarding Moshiach ben Yosef that we've got, that comes up over and over and over again. Right, so just to remind ourselves of the numbers, in Genesis 4, this is still point 2, in Genesis 40:23, we've got, yet the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. And that word for forgot, and we know the concept of to forget Joseph is very important. It comes up many times, and I've done teachings on this concept of Joseph being forgotten. This is the problem, that Joseph has been forgotten, and his suffering has been forgotten. Okay, so it's a link to Moshiach ben Yosef, who is the son, who is the son. Okay, we also know it's linked to Joseph because Pharaoh, it comes to 355. And Joseph was dressed like a Pharaoh before his brothers, just like Yeshua appears in a foreign way to most Jewish people. What does Yeshua appear as? An Edomite god, a false god. Just as Pharaoh is like a false god, the Edomite Yeshua appears to the Jewish people just the same, dressed up in alien clothes, not particularly Jewish. Okay, point 3, 355 is 5 times Jonah, 5 times 71. Okay, and 71 is the nations plus Israel. 71, Jonah is the sign of Moshiach ben Yosef. Is the sign of Moshiach ben David as well. We can link that through to the olive leaf. I'm not going to go through that now because I've gone over it so many times, but Jonah 70 is the 70 nations plus 1 Israel. It's a unity between Israel and the nations, and Jonah means dove, and dove is the sign of peace internationally, especially the dove with the olive leaf in her mouth. Okay, and that whole image of the dove with the olive leaf in the mouth points directly to Yeshua, because one of the fillings out of Yeshua is 522. It's exactly the same as the olive leaf in the dove's mouth. So I'm just going over and over and over these concepts again and again and again to drill home this teaching, this type of teaching, so that we can all make the right connections. 229 then, point 5 is Yaakov plus the ordinal of Yaakov. Okay, so we've got a direct relation between Yosef and Yaakov, which there is a direct relationship between Yosef and Yaakov. Okay, they both represent the letter Vav for a start in the name Yod He Vav He. So, but obviously Yosef also is the tip of the Yod. You know, Moshiach ben Yosef, I should say, represents the tip of the Yod. So there is a powerful connection. Obviously, Yaakov was Yosef's father. Right, point 6 then, known among the nations, comes to 155 plus 74. That's taken from Psalm 79:10. Done a major analysis on Psalm 79:10 and 79:9. You know, there's some major concepts within there, like the revenge of the blood of the servants, which is very much related to the concept of Moshiach, and I've gone over that previously, so I'm not going to go over that now. But that whole saying, known among the nations, and this is Hashem's desire, to be known among the nations, to be king over the nations, as he is king over Yisrael. We went through this concept on the last set of teaching we did about the new moon and Moshiach. So this comes up all the time, the fact that Yod He Vav He desires to be known among the nations. So that comes to 229. Okay, so it's linked back to all these things. How is Moshiach known? How is Yod He Vav He known among the nations? With the power of truth to subdue Esav. Esav can only be subdued by the power of truth. Okay, this is a concept that comes over and over again. He represents evil inclination, he represents delusion, he represents fantasy, he represents fiction. Okay, the Esav, our inner inclination to believe what the serpent whispers in our ear. That's our evil inclination, our inclination towards fantasy and fiction and delusion. You know, to believe something other than the name Yod He Vav He, to put our trust and emunah in something other than the name Yod He Vav He. That's our tendency. That's what we refer to as the nations. This is the external forces in our own lives at the microcosmic level and the macrocosmic level. So that what happens in our own individual lives is exactly what happens in the big picture outside. Okay, so we all have influences of the nations trying to dominate over our soul, which is likened to Yisrael. Okay, this is at the microcosmic level. So we've all got like Esav evil influences, and sometimes they dominate over our soul. It's as simple as that. We're trying to get to a place where our soul dominates over our body. But we're not trying to annihilate our body. We're trying to bring shalom between body and soul. Okay, so the only way to subdue our body is with the truth. We can't trick our body. It represents delusion and fantasy. The only thing to overcome that is actual truth. This is why Yeshua is called the truth. I am the truth. You know, all these are incredible concepts. You cannot lie to your body, and your body will never be at peace unless it has the absolute truth. And I've pointed this out in the Torah. Yaakov deceived Esav out of the blessing for the firstborn. Yeah, Esav was foolish enough to sell it because he needed his, you know, sometimes that body, in order to survive, needs a quick fix. You know, he was starving. He said, I'm going to die. Throw some of that red stuff down my throat. This is Esav to Yaakov. And Esav, not before you sell me your birthright. He knew that Esav was in a, you know, our bodies can die when they're exposed to things like hunger and thirst, and we have got needs, physical needs that are very based on a temporary existence, whereas our soul has got needs that's based on an eternal existence. So there's a conflict, and it's bringing shalom between those two realities, heaven and earth. And the only way is through truth, because we know Yaakov deceived Esav. He tricked him into giving him the birthright, the blessing. But in the end, the Torah shows that there was never unity between Yaakov and Esau, but it's written, and the sages know that at some point in the future there will be unity, there will be shalom between Yaakov and Esau. It's not happened yet. Moshiach will cause this to happen. And that's symbolic of peace between our body and our soul, peace between finite and infinite, peace between spirituality and physicality, peace between female and male, peace between Yaakov and Esau. There's all kinds of different ways of saying the same thing. It's looking at it from a slightly different angle, but we're basically saying the same thing. So Yod He Vav He decides to be king over our body, because when our body is not submitted to the will of Yod He Vav He, it's not submitted to the will of our soul, and Israel is not dominating over the nations. The nations are dominating over Israel, and that will lead only ultimately to chaos and death and destruction. It's delusion. It's all fantasy fiction. So we've got to subdue that power for fantasy and fiction with the truth. With the truth. The truth shall set you free. Shall set you free from the evil influence that we are subject to when our soul is within a body. It's within the belly of the whale. It's in exile. Okay, so that's an important point, and I need to keep going over and over that because it is so important. And the whole sign of the dove is that unity, isn't it, between the nations and Israel, and we've got that sign right here at this point with the whole concept of, as well, the suffering servant. Right, point 7, I hope I've covered that enough. 74, by the way, known among the nations, 74 is 2 times Yeshu. So that's how Yod He Vav He ultimately becomes known among the nations. This is taken a little bit out of context because in 79:10 it's not really referring to Yod He Vav He being known among the nations. I'm not going to go over it now, but what I'm meaning is you can use this particular part of that verse to highlight a very significant concept, and we know it's related to this significant concept because it's related to the concept of Yaakov, and Yaakov represents the truth. Yaakov rectified includes a letter Vav, and that letter Vav is definitely it represents the truth. Okay, we've got a big work to do. The Vav also represents the 6 days of creation and the 6,000 years of creation, and that's the toil and the blood, sweat and tears we've got to endure in order to bring about a revelation of the truth, which is ultimately the name Yod He Vav He, that there's nothing other, only Him, and that includes a unity between physical and spiritual, the earth and heaven and the earth, Esav and Yaakov. Okay, so that's what we're toiling towards now. We can see there's a massive link between that and the concept of Yaakov and this concept of the leper, the suffering servant. And we can see in that point 6, known among the nations, it's 2 times Yeshu. Yeshu is the whole concept of Moshiach ben Yosef and the suffering servant, who appears afflicted, the injured, stricken by God and afflicted. Okay, so it's all linked. It's all linked and it's all glorious. Okay, moving on then from point 6. Point 7, 1364, which is the regular for, and the rabbis say, point 1. And the rabbis say the leper of the house of Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi is his name. Okay, and that is 2 times 682. 682 is I am the Lord who makes all these. So this is an incredible verse. I did an analysis of it based on Ramchal. He who makes peace, and it's just a fascinating teaching, a really, really wondrous teaching it's just like an overflowing cup. It's so rich with wisdom. It's really wonderful. But that's taken from Isaiah 45:7. Right, I've just decided to actually add that verse on because we do actually come across this verse again at another very important part when we're actually analysing the verses within the Torah regarding the leper. Okay, so who forms light and creates darkness? This is a white text box at the bottom. Who makes peace and creates evil? I am the Lord who makes all these. So overall, that comes to 2,844. We can see a direct link as well between this whole number 355. So we've got a double link there, haven't we? And that obviously relates very much to the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. You need to go listen to the teaching that I did on Ramchal, who forms light and who makes peace. I think there's a couple of teachings that are absolutely wonderful. So there's so much wisdom, I can't possibly go through it, all what is contained within that verse. But basically, darkness is at a higher level than light, and evil is at a higher level than peace. Okay, so this is the work that we've got in the 6,000 years. We've got to transform that darkness into light. We've got to transform the evil into shalom. Okay, evil is represented by Esav, the nations. So we've got to transform that into shalom. And we know that Yeshua, who is the truth, is represented by the symbol of peace, which is the dove. So we've got all these concepts linked together continuously over and over and over and over again, whichever way you look at it. This is why I say the entire hidden meaning of the Torah is the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. You get that right, you get it all right. You understand everything. Okay, and like I say, I'm going to actually include it now. 74 equals 2 times 37. Okay, I'll finish that off at some later time when I come in to produce the video. So that is Yeshu, that's now point 7. I've just included that, and I've included this verse because obviously you can see in there a couple of concepts that are very significantly related. This whole concept of Yosef being forgotten, related to Pharaoh, related to the whole concept of the sun, the luminary. And we know that the luminaries represent Moshiach. Okay, point 8 then, 130. All right. I get it now. So point 7 was, this is point 8 about Yeshu, sorry. I've put it in the wrong order. Right, so point 8 will now be about Yeshua. Point 7 is just the same. I am the Lord who makes all these things. And that's the verse underneath. Right? Not going to look at that any longer. Let's go and have a look at this statement from the Talmud, slightly different numbers. We're just looking at the part which says the leper of the house of Rabbi is his name. Okay, so this part here then, point 1, a leper of the house of Rabbi is his name, comes to 805. 139 ordinarily comes to 944 in total. Point 2, 139 is Jonah Anavi, Jonah the prophet. Okay, 900, and I'm going to put that down as point 3 now. Point 3, 944, which is the overall total from a leper of the house of Rabbi is his name, is 8 times 118. And if we go down to point 6, we can see 118. I will do that in purple, just to make it clearer. That comes to a filling out of Yeshua, which, so this is all connected, isn't it, to the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. Who is Moshiach ben Yosef? A leper of the house of the name, the house of Rabbi is his name. It's Yeshua. And how do we know that? Well, it's a filling out of the name Yeshua, 118, for 8 times 118. 8 is supernatural in itself. The whole concept of Moshiach ben Yosef is very supernatural, the most supernatural concept in a lot of ways. And then you've got the sign that Moshiach ben Yosef gave us, the sign of Yonah being the ordinal. I mean, it can't get much clearer than that. Okay, so we've got to be very clear what we're talking about. And this brings a lot of clarity. It helps to overcome that darkness and transform it from darkness into light. The verse that we pulled up last time on the previous slide. This is what we're trying to do, aren't we? We've been presented with a lot of doubt regarding Moshiach ben Yosef, a lot of Amalek. This is the evil host. Nobody wants to battle with this level of doubt. This level of doubt is absolutely terrifying. You know, when I started this journey, we were a trembling wreck. I basically had to sit. It felt like I was in sackcloth and ashes day after day after day. You know, I didn't want to go to this place, but neither did I want doubt to exist in my life. I didn't want nothing to come between me and the name Yod Heh Vav Heh. And doubt does. Whether you like to believe it or not, you have not got a clear view of the name Yod Heh Vav Heh. If you've got pockets of doubt here, there, and everywhere, you have not got complete faith. You have not got complete trust. You've got things that you've no answers for. You've got, and if you don't ask the questions, well, you've got a double problem as far as I'm concerned. You're living in ignorance, which will be a lie. You know, you live in a delusion and probably don't even know about it, which is a far worse exile than somebody that at least has questioned something but doesn't have the answer. You know, you've got to question things and then be brave enough to find the answer. And be bold enough. And this is very difficult regarding Moshiach ben Yosef, because Moshiach ben Yosef he's got such strong opinions from within Judaism. And, you know, I'm talking about Moshiach ben Yosef as Yeshua. The concept that, you know, Yeshua, Jesus, from a Jewish point of view, you're not going to get answers. From a Christian point of view, you're not going to get answers. So you really, this is where the doubt comes in. And then you even doubt yourself, will I be able to figure this one out? Probably not. There's probably, you know, it's the overwhelming nature of it. You don't want to head off on this journey, but there was, like I say, I've always had to question things, because I was, you know, when I had a wonderful born-again experience and attachment to the name Yod Heh Vav Heh, I then was exiled into the Christian church looking for answers as to what had happened, you know. And then I was exiled into Judaism in the era of Rav. Very nasty experiences, both nasty experiences. But leaves you feeling absolutely useless and worthless and degraded, you know, and, you know, really bitter. You're treading a very bitter way, and you think, I'm looking for the truth. You know, why can't these people be grown up when you're asking questions about Yeshua? They're not grown up, they're immature, they act immature, and that immaturity is death and destruction, leads to death and destruction, spiritually and physically. It manifests, you know, nobody wants to confront Amalek spiritually, and certainly nobody wants to confront the physical manifestation of that doubt. You know, nobody wants, because the physical manifestation looks a lot like Nazis. I don't want to go against them. I don't want a physical manifestation of a spiritual reality in my life. So I sat there in my sackcloth and ashes, and I sat there knowing that it was a difficult job that was out, but I set off on a journey. I was very fortunate that through divine inspiration I was able to conclude all the doubts, not just one, all the doubts that I had. So far, I've answered every single question. I had a lot of very profound, deep questions regarding Moshiach ben Yeshua. A lot. Endless. And it took a long time to go from a place of doubt and quivering and shaking to a place of confidence and security and trust and emunah v'bitachon. Faith and trust in the name Yod Heh Vav Heh, to totally obliterate that doubt that I had. It's a journey, you know. But everything I didn't realize. I felt like I was somehow rebelling against Yod Heh Vav Heh. This is the darkness that you face. Nobody wants to be like a quivering wreck before these concepts. You know, totally outfaced by your own limitations. Nobody wants to go to these places. Okay, and then it's not until you go on that journey until you wrestle with all this darkness, until you cause it to yield the thing that you're looking for, then you know when you read this verse, who forms light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates evil, you are a living witness to that. You have transformed the darkness that confronted you into light. You have transformed the evil that totally and absolutely, it was executing me daily. I was dying and being brought back to life daily, hourly, minute by minute. It was, honestly, I know what resurrection from the dead is, because I was overwhelmed. I was to the point of I couldn't continue. I mean, it was really difficult to confront these things. Your ego does not want you to be put in a place which it feels uncomfortable being. But, then when you go through that painful process of transformation, you read that I am who makes peace and creates evil. Yod He Vav He in that verse. You have dwelt with that reality. That reality is your life. So I can speak about these things because I've been there and done that. And that is the experience of my life. And I am a witness to that wonderful, glorious truth that hidden in evil is peace. Confronting Amalek and defeating him brings great peace. Great revelation of the name Yod He Vav He. Nearness to the name Yod He Vav He. So for absolute fact that these questions, thankfully, they're a question that physically manifests as doubt. It's at the level of thought. It's not like I am actually facing a physical Nazi. So we should be grateful about that. We should be grateful that they manifested as a question regarding Moshiach ben Yosef for me in my life, and not something else. That it was a very difficult one. I honestly, you come very close to losing your faith because you really are you really are outfaced by you. It's a big, powerful enemy. Doubt is a powerful enemy. Because you're always conscious, will the doubt be victorious? Have I got reason for this doubt? And, but I was very fortunate. I was able to confront it because I had an attachment to the name Yod He Vav He, a supernatural attachment. And it was by divine providence. I knew when I set off on to look for answers to the questions, I perceived I was getting divine help. I could perceive it very clearly. So this strengthened me to keep going. Even though it was difficult, I had this awareness. One of the name Yod He Vav He, you can't confront doubt without it. You have to be attached. You have to be very firmly attached to the name Yod He Vav He, because the greatest weapon that I had when I was confronting all these issues was to just say, "En od melvado," there is nothing. Even if it proves that all that I've been believing is rubbish, it makes no difference, because at the end of the day, there's only Yod He Vav He. And that was the thing that got me through, a very strong attachment to the reality that Yod He Vav He has put these questions of doubt before me for a reason that must be good. Press on. And until they yield, and they did yield. So I'm talking about things that I've experienced. It's very important to be aware of that. And, people who are listening to this video, you're searching for something. And it's commendable, because through that searching, you will find the revelation. It will yield. The darkness, the confusion, the frustration, not being able to fully link all these concepts together, this will yield. And, I listened to other people, and then I took their teachings further for my own personal, I was able to use other people's teachings to help me to understand some of the questions that I needed answers for. Okay, so these are wonderful concepts that we've just got to be permanently aware of and not afraid, because all these negative feelings regarding the confusion that we've got around the concept of Moshiach, they all will yield light. What is that light? That they'll ultimately yield a revelation of the name Yod He Vav He. And trust me, this is the only thing in life that we truly desire. It's the purpose for which we exist. Okay. We have definitely we are made to receive a revelation of that name Yod He Vav He. And if we receive anything else, it will never quite fit. There will always be, in fact, some of the things that we try and fit into a place where we should be receiving a revelation of the name Yod He Vav He just makes that vessel, it just makes the hole feel more empty. We think we're filling it up with like material things, like all our lusts and desires. We've got a great amount of lusts and desires, and we think by filling in these feelings of yearning that we've got, we'll somehow appease these feelings, and they don't. And enough is never enough. when we're trying to satisfy it with the wrong things. The only thing that brings satisfaction, the only thing that brings shalom is the name Yod Heh Vav Heh. It's knowing and being near to that, nothing else. There is nothing else, only Him. Okay, so where else did we get for? All right, okay, so I've got on there, what have I got? I've actually, so I'm gonna carry on. What else have we got? We've got this saying. I mean, it doesn't hit the nail on the head any more than this. Point 4, who has ascended into heaven and descended? 153. So I'm going to go over that, but this is the old concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, who has descended into Edomite exile, and the initial letters are Me'esav, from Esav. And basically, what is that saying to us? That is saying that is saying that the Moshiach has descended into Esav, into this Edomite exile with us. Edom and Esav are basically synonymous. Edom was a descendant of Esav. Okay. And basically, Esav comes to 416 regularly, which is 2 times Yitzchak. And also it comes to 56 ordinarily, add them together and it comes to 472. So again, it all ties back to these major concepts. I've gone across this concept of 153 so many times now, it comes up all the time. It's the code that Moshiach gave to his disciples, Moshiach Yeshua, when he reappeared to them, and the Galilean told them to fish. They'd not caught fish through the night, throw your net over the right hand side, and there's 153 fishes in the boat, in the net, and that's all a code that's pointing to the fact that he was on his way down into exile to suffer. He was going into exile, the Edomite exile, to suffer with us, to be afflicted, and it's like it says in Isaiah 53 at the top, indeed our illnesses did he bear, and our pains endured, yet we did esteem him injured, stricken, my God, and afflicted. Unless you have had a revelation from the name Yod Heh Vav Heh regarding the suffering servant Moshiach ben Yosef, regarding Yeshua, that's exactly how he appears to you. Somebody injured, stricken by God, and afflicted. I used to think these poor Christians, look at them, happy clappers, Jesus freaks. Look at the state of them. They're so weak that they have to believe that rubbish. They're so weak-minded. That's how I used to think. You're looking at people like that as it, and then when I had my eyes were opened, I was honestly, I could have stared at that reality for the entire of eternity. That these people who I had considered like weak and, deluded, happy clapping Jesus freaks, these people that I'd looked on in such a stricken, honestly, I could have stared at the truth forever. When my eyes were open and that wow, they were speaking the truth. It's unbelievable. That was your born again experience. I could have stared at that for all reality. For all eternity, just your eyes to be opened and behold that, when you know that you've experienced something so contrary in the natural order of your life, the way that you view things in your natural mentality, and to be lifted up to comprehend the supernatural is unbelievable. You never want to stop staring at it. Okay, you never want to. But how did I go from that to abandoning my faith in Yeshua? That in itself is a supernatural miracle. I was all meant to be, but then I became injured, stricken, and afflicted, because that time that was not a nice time in my life. An essential part of my life, but it was a very challenging part at the same time. And part of the teachings that I'm doing now are to prevent anybody from departing from the faith in Yeshua. To think that we can abandon that and go towards Erev Rav dominated Judaism at this time is total utter delusion. it might be necessary for a temporary situation like what I endured. But wow, we're going to get badly burnt going down that road. You're going to lose the revelation regarding the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh that you received through the Torah of Moshiach. And you're going to start looking at Christians, like I've just said, like there's something. So I went from that, I went back to our originally was. Talk about a dog that returns to its vomit. So I abandoned my faith in Yeshua, and then I go back to viewing Christians just like that again. But this time, you see, I'm supreme because I'm a Jew. Or I'm living my life as an Orthodox Jew. I'm going to shul and I'm eating kosher, and look at them, swine eaters. And that's where I was at. And but I totally severed myself from that revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh above the letter of the law. And it hurt my life. I suffered. Like I say, I needed to understand the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh from within the letter of the law, and I did accomplish that. And it's a glorious revelation. The delight that the Jewish people have is a glorious revelation. Within the letter of the law, it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. But we're not supposed to trade one in for the other. We're supposed to cling to both of those revelations and unite them as one. I don't know exactly how that will happen. We will need Moshiach or somebody like Eliyahu Hanavi, to be able to, reconcile those two incredible revelations of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. How the inner and outer revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh will happen, I don't know, but it will be glorious. Okay? It will be utterly and absolutely, completely glorious. Okay, so I have got experience, some experiences that I'm not particularly proud of, but they are the experiences of my life, and they certainly do align with the sort of things that are written in the Torah about, written in the Torah, and we can at least learn from them. And other people might be able to share and be able to identify and avoid at all costs going down a particular road that would lead to the kinds of experiences that I led to, which is one of great suffering. If you want to be at the place of grinding your teeth and bitter wailing, then abandon your faith in Yeshua. You'll get there. Guaranteed there'll be a lot of tooth grinding going on. Yeah, you'd be attaching to the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh through the letter of the law, and it's a glorious thing, and it's, thank goodness you do attach to the name of the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh in that way, because it does, to some degree, alleviate the incredible pain that disattaching from the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh at the supreme levels of mercy would bring to anybody in their life. Better to stay united and understand this teaching that's before you, and look at ways in which we can reconcile. There's somebody that'll come after me, and hopefully they'll take this and take these teachings, or they're here now already, and they're in a much better position to be able to, like, for example, the experience the complete grace and mercy of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and they're never ever detached from that. Not like myself, who completely detached myself from that revelation. Well, to the degree that you can detach, obviously there's still a trace of that always remains, and enables it. He fanned the flame. I'm fanning the flames now, desperately trying to get that revelation to be alive within me now, but it almost went out. And then to also fan the flames of the revelation that you received from the Torah of Moshiach, because it's very difficult to cling to that as well. It's continual work to stay attached to the revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh through the letter of the law. One, because you've got to keep the letter of the law in order to remain attached. And it's very difficult, like when I'm not pursuing Judaism at this time. So you've got to consider all these things, but there's what's before us, and that's the work that we've got to do. And when we do unite that name, well, we're going to be fulfilling that verse, who creates light and who forms light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates evil. And this is our job that we've got to do, and not be daunted by it. We've got to find a way. And we will get a lot of help from heaven We need to just set our hand to the plough, and even that can feel very overwhelming and daunting when you've got an entire field in front of you that needs ploughing, and you've only got a limited amount of strength. These old-fashioned ploughs churning up the fields. That's what it feels like. We need the divine inspiration from above, don't we? We need to, like we set off with our hand ploughing our all our whole body shaking as we're trying to get through the rocks and the rubble, turning the field, ploughing the field up, and then all of a sudden, we do one row, and then at the end of the row there's a, wow, look at this machine that's there. You get the divine inspiration from above, and it makes the job a whole lot easier. We need the divine inspiration now. We have not got time to be toiling in the way that they used to toil. Things happen in this world at very, very high pace, at very, very high pace. Transformations, evil transformations occur at a very high pace. We need to be attached to a source that's going to provide us a remedy for this quick changing, quick paced evil. We've got to combat that with holiness. We've got to be able to transition and get jobs done very, very quickly. Answers to questions very quickly. We can't say, in 20 years' time I might have figured this one out. We need to ask the question and get the answers almost immediately. And that field needs ploughing in the day. We've got to recognise that this is the time that we're in. And if this is the time that's before us, then Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh would have provided for that reality, because he made one opposite the other. So when we see evil moving at a fast pace, as quick as what it's moving at this time, and it can change laws instantly, it can lock down the entire, take our rights away instantly. The level of evil governance in this world at this time is so great. There's got to be an opposite holy. So we just should celebrate that and think, okay, so if I can see the evil, then for sure the opposite holy is here too. And we've got to attach to that reality, and transform that darkness into light. Okay, because he made one opposite the other. And we've got to make sure that we're not just going into that black hole of evil, getting suckered down into that we are actually staying attached to the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And in that attachment to the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, we are receiving the holy opposite to all that evil, the inspiration, the light, the shalom. Okay, so we are in exile. But we are also connected to the soul of Moshiach ben Yosef, who is suffering with us in exile. We've got to remember that very clearly. Okay, so Me'esav, from Esav comes to 614. This is point 4. Point 5, Krushya, Yeshuvcha, which contains the 3 letters highlighted in pink that come to Yeshua. We've gone over that analysis. He will crush your head, you will bite his heel. That was the previous teachings on Psalm 118 that I have done. So that comes to 416, exactly the same as Me'esav. That's directly related to this leper of the house of Rebbe is his name. So, I mean, there is so many connections. And I've highlighted in point 5, I've highlighted 65. 65 is a concept of mezuzah, it's a concept of intermediary. The Mashiach is an intermediary between finite and infinite. It's the same number as mezuzah. The mezuzah is a gate between the outside and the inside. It's something distinguished. It's an intermediary between the outside and the inside. Okay, 65 is also the name Adonai. The Adonai is an intermediary between us, which is finite, and the infinite name, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. We don't say the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. We say Adonai at this time until Moshiach comes and we're holy enough to be able to pronounce that name and understand it. Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. We're wanting to get to that place of revelation. Okay. And that 481 is a very significant number. I haven't got time to go over it in this lesson, but if you were to go and have a look at the one and crush your head, go over that number, and it's glorious, utterly glorious. So I suggest you go and have a look at that. Point 6 then, 472 is 4 times 118. We've already come across that, haven't we? Point 3 is 944, which is the ordinal, and the regular of this comes to 118. Okay, let me just see if I can find this 805 because it says go and have a look at it. And I can't remember what it is now. All right, so this is unbelievable. This is another wonderful, 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 wonderful revelation. You know, it's just dripping and oozing. It's a cup that runs over. I've gone through some of these numbers, but if we go down already in this teaching, go down to point 8, likrot to meet, comes to 731, plus 74 ordinally, which is 2 times Yeshua, the exact ordinal for what we've just gone over. Let's just go back. Oops, no, not to that one. 74. Oh, it's one. All right. Okay, yeah. So it was the ordinal of known among the nations. That was it. I knew it. I knew I'd just come across it. So where were we when we said that? Okay, yeah, point 8 then. So to meet 731, which is an incredibly significant number, we're gonna have a quick look at that. We're continually having a look at that. It comes up all the time, and that's got an ordinal of 74. So together they come to 805, which is 161 times 5. This is the first word in the Torah that equals 731. The first instance of it appears in Genesis 15:10, and it also appears in 46:29. 46:29 is the verse in white below. And Joseph harnessed his chariot and went up to meet, likrot, to meet, which comes to 731, Yisrael, his father. To Goshen, and he appeared to him, and he fell on his neck, and he wept on his neck for a long time. Can you remember me telling you there's a very much a direct link between Yisrael and Yosef? Okay, Yaakov and Yosef. So we've got this whole connection here as well through this number 731. And obviously it's connected back to 805. You know, very directly related to this whole word that we've just been looking at. You know, a leper from the house of Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi. Nisai, which comes to 805. Okay, so all those things from point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 are all related to that number 731. So Sarach Bat Asher is 508 regularly, 49 ordinally. This is point 1. 905 is a squared ordinal. That comes to 1462, which is 2 times 731. I'm going to go through fast because I go through these numbers all the time. Point 2, the luminaries. This is the rectified spelling. In the Torah, it's spelt without the 2 vavs that are included there. So this is a rectified spelling of the luminaries, which refers to Moshiach ben Yosef and Moshiach ben David. 658 regularly, 73 ordinally. That comes to 731. Point 3, Moshe plus Yeshua comes to 731. Point 4, Melech Yisrael comes to 731. It's 631 regular, 100 ordinal. Point 5, 731 is Tov, good inclination, times Esav, 43 ordinally, evil inclination. Okay, so that's what we want in that. We want in a full inter-inclusion between our good inclination and our evil inclination, to the point where our good inclination dominates over our evil inclination and subdues it to the side of holy or to the side of good. It's influenced, it's used for good. What's that good? To receive a revelation of the name Yod He Vav He, nothing else. That's the only good that there is. There's no other good than the name Yod He Vav He. Okay, point 6, Ketisa. When you take, this is one of the Torah portions, comes to 731, 65, which is an intermediary again, the concept of the intermediary, that's related to the concept of Moshiach, very much so. The whole concept of the mezuzah is related to the concept of Moshiach. I've pointed this out many, many, many times. The mysterious letters of the name written in the mezuzah scroll. There's 3 mysterious letters that are a cipher for the name Yod He Vav He, Elohenu Yod He Vav He. There comes to 327. 327 is the ordinal of Moshiach ben Yosef, Moshiach ben David, and Moshiach ben Ephraim, and it's also connected to the name Sarach Bat Asher. Okay, I believe it's the, I'm saying it from memory now, I believe it's the initial letters of Sarach Bat Asher, or it could be the end letters, I can't remember now, but some connection between Sarach Bat Asher and the concept of the mezuzah. So we know she's an intermediary too, and she comes up all the time. She was the one that found the bones of Moshe. Sorry, the bones of Yosef. which is Moshe, but no wonder I keep making that mistake and saying that. But anyway, so point 8 then, to meet comes to 731. We've already gone over that. Point 7, sorry. The luminaries are rectified when the evil inclination, the body, the Esav nations are subdued to the side of good Yaakov's soul and Yisrael. So it's all what I've been saying, and it's linked to that verse. Who forms light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates evil. I can't remember in which order it is, but the verse that we've just been looking at, that's very helpful when it comes to resolving. It's very helpful to be able to understand some of the situations that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh places us in. We sometimes can become very overwhelmed by the darkness and by the evil, and we can dwell in that reality without doing anything about it. In fact, we can go from darkness to greater darkness and evil to greater evil. God forbid, heaven forbid. In the process, we can slip down that slippery slope. I did. I started off and it was bad. I ended up and it was a whole lot worse. And then I'm having to crawl back from the depths, because I didn't take corrective action. I didn't understand. You start to think, why is God doing this to me, punishing me? What have I done wrong? It's all confusing. But anyway, in the end, once you say, okay, so I'm in this mess now, let's see what I can do to get out. And, that was what my journey was. It was about assessing this horrific situation and thinking, no matter what, I've got to do something to get out. I've got to deal with this reality now, this darkness. Now I have to do something about it. I can't possibly live my life. I was at a stage where I was ill with it. I was so ill. I was basically backed into a corner. To get out, I had to do something, because I was waiting for that miraculous deliverance that never came. Okay, the first time, when you're delivered in your first redemption, like your born again experience, connection to the Yod-Heh-Vav, it's all so supernatural. And every bump on the road that you experience, you're looking for that supernatural deliverance. It doesn't come second. Redemption is about what we do for ourselves down below. That, and when we wake up to that reality, we get the help from above. Like I say, when you start off ploughing the field, but you go to plough the field with what little you've got, in the state of overwhelm that you feel, and will you ever even finish the task? Who knows? Because you know that this is a big task, and given the tools that you've got, when you start off, you are totally and absolutely overwhelmed. But if you don't do it, there's not going to be no food. If you don't plough that field up, there's not going to be food. It's not just going to. We're not talking about manna from heaven now. We're talking about entering in and to a place where we have to toil and we have to do the work and set the hand to the plough. But then from that we get the divine inspiration. We do get miraculous intervention, but it comes in a much more natural and holistic way. It's a much more natural and holistic way. We simply got that extra inspiration, that extra strength. And suddenly we look behind us and, wow, I've done all that already. This is unbelievable. We've got that quickening. We reach the destination, and we reach the destination much quicker than we anticipated. Okay? All these wonderful things can come to be. Right, where did I get to then? Point 9, Likrot Yisrael comes to 1,272, which is 8 times 159, and an Odlin of 138, which is Menachem, and it's also Tzemech. Two names of the Moshiach. Menachem, as we've just covered in the Talmud, one of the names of the Moshiach is Menachem. Some of the rabbis said it's Menachem. Okay, and it's also Tzemech. Tzemech is the concept of, it's the branch, but it's really the messianic concept of continual growth. continual growth, just like a plant continually grows and flourishes and blossoms and bears fruit. So too, when we are connected to Moshiach, this is the place that we get to. We're not like some dead, withered up, shriveled tree. We're not producing bitter fruits, immature, bitter fruits. We've reached full maturity. Our roots are cast down. We're right beside the river. We're flourishing. The fruit is absolutely abundant, and that is when we are attached to the concept of Moshiach, and we go from that place of darkness and bitter wailing and grinding teeth and evil, we go into a place of revelation. And it's like I always point it out when I'm walking with the children. You're walking along, and all of a sudden, the light illuminates everything, and you can look at where something's shadowed, and you can hardly see anything. You can't see any of the fine details, and things look gloomy, and all the colours are dull and suppressed and oppressed. Nothing looks nice in shadow. And then all of a sudden, and sometimes I'll point it out, I'll say, look at the top of the tree to the bottom of the tree. If you're walking through a forest and the light is hitting the top, and it's ablaze with colours, you can go out at certain times. Everything is illuminated and glorious and shining and wonderful. And then you're looking at the bottom thinking, look at the difference. You can hardly see what's in the shadows. You need to get ourselves out into the light, And so I'm always pointing this out to the kids. And that to me is the difference between this. When we attach to Moshiach, it's like we're in the light, and we'll look flourishing and blossoming and growing and healthy, and all the colours that we've got within us are illuminated in a wonderful way. We see within ourselves something. Everything just looks much more beautiful. And to me, that's the whole concept of the tzemech, the branch. It's as if the branch is in perfect growing conditions, and the light is shining on it, and all the colours are coming out, and it's all glorious and wonderful. So that aspect of Moshiach is something we all could definitely attach to. That comes to 1410. Point 10, may be pleasing to his brothers. That comes to, okay, so this is now looking at a different number. It's because this likrat Yisrael comes to 1,272, and that is related to the number 356. I'm not going to go through that because I've already been through these numbers in the previous teachings recently, so I'm just going to leave that as it is. Okay. You can read through. It's all basically pointing towards Moshiach being Yeshua. You can see that from point 14. I've just recently gone over these concepts, and I'll also point out point 12 is 356, which is the ordinal of may be pleasing to his brothers, is 4 times 89. 4 times 89 is evil inclination. We become pleasing when we defeat the evil inclination, the will to serve ourselves, and we replace that with a will to serve Yod Heh Vav Heh, and we are empowered to do that through a revelation of the name Yod Heh Vav Heh that we have accessed through Yeshua. Okay, all these things conspire together to make what will ultimately be Yeshua pleasing to his brothers. Okay, that's actually taken from a verse, and it's actually related to a blessing. I think it's Naphtali. Just wait a minute. Okay, no, it's the blessing that was spoken to Asher, and of Asher he said, "Let Asher be blessed with children, let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil." So, but we can also apply that to Yeshua. We want in Yeshua himself to be a blessing to his brothers. Okay, anyway, I'm going to leave that there. There's loads of different I've already gone through this that particular slide very recently, so I just wanted to cover it and link that into this concept that we've been covering today, this concept of the leper from the house of a leper of the house of Rebbe or Rabbi Yehudah HaNasi is his name. That comes to 804, that directly links to this word likroat, which I'll also put on there at the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to leave the teaching for there. There's loads more to go. We haven't even started. We haven't even gone and had a look. We've just had a look at the words, how it's written in the Talmud. We haven't even gone to the words of the Torah yet. So there where it all gets exciting, and then we haven't even looked at the number 990 that I said I would at the beginning. But we can't pass over what's written in the Talmud, because this in itself reveals so much. And we've got to use every opportunity we've got, because it's when we're looking at it from all these angles that's when we overcome our doubt. That's when we overcome our Amalek. That's when we overcome the evil. That's when we overcome and transform this from darkness into light, and from evil into shalom. So it's worth the effort to go and exhaust, these hands. It's like ploughing your field. You don't want to go in zigzag lines. You want to plough in a straight line, and you want to do things properly. You don't want to do things half-heartedly. I've just been doing some weeding. And sometimes when you're asking your teenage children to come and help you do the weeding, it's it's awful. They're doing things half-heartedly, and you're thinking, just crack on, put your shoulder in, put some effort in. And I could nearly despair, because I know what it was like to be a teenager. You're occupied with a million different things, and you grow, all your efforts got going in your body growing and things like that. You just haven't got the same energy levels, and you definitely don't want to be doing anything with your mum at that age. You're trying to form your own independence, aren't you? But it can be very frustrating. And I'm thinking, no wonder, there's mention about, the harvest is plentiful and the workers are lazy. You think when you've got teenage children, you can certainly identify with that. But we've got this massive, overwhelming job to do. But we need to still do it properly. We can't cut corners, and we can't do half-hearted, and we can't do a bad job. It's got to be done in a very organised, thorough way. We hit a stone, we pick the stone up, we remove it, we get it out of the way. You've got to think about this process that we're in now of revealing the name Yod He Vav He, and of revealing the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, in order to attach properly to a concept of the name Yod He Vav He within the letter of the law, i.e. through the Torah of Moshe, and link that up and unite that to the concept of Moshiach. The concept of the Torah of Moshiach, the revelation of the name Yod He Vav He, the much higher level of mercy. And with that, I'll say shalom.